Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ethan Collier, and I chair the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. Welcome to our meeting. I've got a couple things I want to go over before we get started. First of all, there have been some slides that have been playing overhead that tell everybody the procedures of today's meeting, but I'll just cover the highlights. First of all, Planning Commission has received this agenda a little over a week ago. And all the information that's contained in it is all the staff reports and those sorts of things. And so because we've gotten this information a little over a week ago, we've had opportunity to review it. So there's times throughout our meeting where we move really quickly on agenda items. So make sure to follow along and know where we're at. In each case, I'll read off the agenda item number, the case number. And I will ask if there's anybody here in opposition. And what I'm asking is if you're here and you're not the applicant and you want to speak, make sure to raise your hand. Because when I say, hey, is there anybody here in opposition to this case, it's my opportunity to see that there's some folks here that are not the applicant. They might have concerns with the request of the applicant or the recommendations, and they want to speak to those concerns. It's so important that you raise your hand when I ask if there's any opposition present on that case. In those cases, if there's opposition here or we have a staff recommendation to deny, we almost always slow down and walk through it with the folks that are here. In those cases, we'll first hear the staff report. Then the applicant will have an opportunity to come up to the mic. The applicant needs to come up, and the applicant will have 7 minutes to speak. Make sure you state your name and address for the record if you're at the podium. When the applicant's done, there might be some questions back and forth between the Planning Commission members and the applicant, and then the applicant will sit down and we'll hear from the opposition. The total time allotted for opposition is 9 minutes, and we stick super tight to that total 9 minutes. So if there's 15 people here in opposition, the time allotment for opposition to speak is still only 9 minutes. So I will say that if you're here and you're in opposition on a case and you want to speak, it's also really important that when that time comes, you get out of your chair. Don't stay in your chair. Make sure to get out of your chair and come up to the right side of the room here behind the person at the mic so that I can see that there's a number of people that would also like to speak. One thing to think about if you're here and you're in opposition, that we do only have that total of 9 minutes. It's helpful to us. We're here to hear from staff. We're here to hear from the applicant and the applicant's engineers and professionals. We're also here to hear from the public. It's not helpful for us if for 9 minutes, each person comes up to the mic and tells us the exact same thing that the person before them said. So if you're here and you're standing behind somebody that's talking, make sure you listen to what they're saying. And when you get up to the mic, tell us something that we haven't already heard, something original. That's the most helpful to us as decision makers. You might be able to reiterate that you have some concerns about the traffic, but I could go on and on telling you stories about the number of times people have stood up and told us the exact same thing for 9 minutes straight. We're quick learners. After the opposition gets done, they'll all sit down. The applicant will come back up to the mic for 2 minutes and have the opportunity to address any questions or concerns that have come up or been pointed out by opposition. All the conversation that happens today will be between the Planning Commission members and the person at the mic. The person at the mic does not talk to the audience or staff, just us. And then our questions are directed, in that direction or to staff. So if you have a question for staff, direct those questions to us, and we'll make sure they get addressed by staff. Also, in regards to our zoning cases, those cases all go on to City Council or County Commission. So if you're here, either as an applicant or in opposition, make sure you follow those dates closely so that you can attend those future meetings. With that, I think that's everything, right? Have I said everything?
I think so. You covered it well.
All right. We'll get into the agenda. Oh, I do want to welcome Mayor Wamp to Planning Commission today. Thank you for being here. All right. First case on the agenda was deferred from December of last year. and it's SD 2022-0052, and it's a preliminary plat, Rivers Edge subdivision lots 1 through 379, located at 1200 Judd Road. And we have a staff recommendation to defer 30 days, but we cannot do that because if we deferred for 30 days, it would be automatically approved. We've already heard from the applicant on this case in the past. And
Mr. Chairman, I do have some information since you and I talked
Sure.
a few minutes ago. Part of the reason the plat was deferred from last month was some additional information required from the developer in terms of a revised, updated traffic impact study. That's been done, and as of this morning, we have actually early this morning we had an email from transportation that everything submitted with that TIS is adequate and okay. Other concerns in terms of access to the property in case there is a fire, that's been alleviated through the fire marshal's office with a written document provided by United Rentals. So some of the concerns have been alleviated. I think we can move forward with a preliminary plat approval. A lot of the issues that still need to be addressed will be handled through
permitting.
the permitting and land disturbing phase.
So we've got a revised staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is a preliminary plat. It's SD 2023-0001, and it's lots 1 through 26, located at 9200 block of Snow Hill Road, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? Mr. Payne, we have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm sorry?
Okay. It's turned up now. It should be.
I have never heard that before in my entire life. I mean, like, that's the first time. Like, if we could put that on record. No, normally I don't. I'll talk a little louder.
Can y'all hear it now? It's turned up. That's better. Okay.
Next case on the agenda is item 3, SD 2023-0002. This is final plat for James Creek Phase 1, lots 34 through 67, located at 6725 Ottawa Georgetown Road, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is SD 2023-0003. It's a final plat for Pinewood Residential, lots 1 through 77, located at 7531 Pinewood Drive, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And the next case is item 5 on our agenda. It's SD 2023-0004. It's a preliminary plat for Legacy subdivision lots 1 through 9, located at 7503 Igu Gap Road. As a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, first item under old business was deferred from December. It's case 2022-0234, and it's located at 8229 and 0 Middle Valley Road. And it's an application to rezone from A1 to O1. And I think we've seen this case now twice.
That's correct.
Do we have any new information from staff on this?
Yes, last month, actually has been deferred since November, but last month, Planning Commission directed staff to get with the applicant to look at O1 and actually nail down the proposed use of this property. We've since done that. The applicant intends to use this property as strictly an office. That's only allowed in the O1 zone. So staff recommends to approve, actually, Planning Commission, since they directed staff to come up with 01, is to approve 01 with one condition. Let's see what that condition is. It was height, was it not? Maximum building height of 2.5 stories or 35 feet. And we have renderings. This is the site plan the applicant provided on Friday. Here's architectural renderings. I think that was asked at last month's Planning Commission meeting what the office building would look like. They've since provided that. And I believe today they have a listing of people, a petition, the people who were in support of the request.
Okay. Is there any opposition? Are you familiar with the condition that staff has placed on this?
Yeah, that's
And do you have any questions or concerns in regards to that condition?
I think we're good.
Okay. We have a motion to approve with the staff recommendation and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Did you want to say anything before we take action?
I think we're good.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, staff, for taking the time to revisit that with them.
No problem.
Next case on the agenda is item 1 under new business. It's case 2023-0003, and this is located at 8454, 8460, 8510 Chambers Road, and it's an application to rezone from R1 and R5 to RTZ, 0 lot line, and staff has recommended to deny the application. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, we also did receive opposition emails. I think you have a copy of that in front of you.
Okay.
I believe, I'll let the applicant speak. I think they may be asking for a deferral if that's still.
That's correct.
Are you the
I'm
applicant?
Russell Moorhead. I'm with Croy Engineering representing the applicant.
Okay.
I'm at 1270 Market Street. And we did submit a request Friday for a deferral.
And for what purpose?
We want to meet with the district representative, and we had some trouble scheduling a public meeting because it was the holidays. So we're trying to get that done as well.
Okay. Well, I'd like to, can you raise your hand if you're here in opposition? Thank you all for being here. What the applicant's asking for is for us to defer this case till next month, which means you would have to come back next month. And we certainly understand because we're here every month what a headache it is to come down to these meetings. So just out of respect for the fact that you all have taken the time out of your days to come, if you'd like to speak, we'd be happy to hear from you. I'll first hear from staff on the case so that we're all make sure we're reminded of the details. And then we'll give you an opportunity to speak and then we'll take action on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. You can go through the.
Are you here wanting to speak on that case? Okay. Yes, sir. We'll have that opportunity in just a few minutes. Oh, okay. So we'll hear first from staff, and then we'll hear from the applicant, and then you'll have the opportunity to speak. Mr.
Okay,
Schultz.
sure. This is case 2023-003. It's rezoned property from R1 residential zone and a small sliver of the property from R5 to RTZ, residential townhouse 0 lot line zone for proposed townhomes. It's roughly 9 acres in size, proposing 74 townhouse units, and that's a density of 8 dwelling units per acre. Just looking at the zoning map, this is off Morris Hill Road. It's all R1. You do have some R5 to the north, but in this general vicinity, there is no RTZ zoning. There's been no history of zoning on this particular piece of property. In 2017, on Petty Road to the north, there was some property rezoned to RTZ, but that's further north of this site. You also have north of this site, adjacent to the R5, a planned unit development that was approved. Here's an aerial view of the site. You can see it's one large single-family dwelling. Everything abutting this property to the north, south, east, and west is all single-family detached dwellings. There are no townhomes in this general vicinity. Here's an aerial view showing you floodplain or flood hazard area on this property. It just clips a little portion to the southwest. You have floodway and floodplain on the property. This is a view of the site with a single-family detached dwelling. Another view of the site. Another view of the site. This image is Chambers Road. The site's on the left-hand side. This is a view north of the site, which again is a single-family detached dwelling. This is south of the site along Morin Road, which again is more single-family detached dwellings. This is the image east of the site, again, of a single-family dwelling. And this is east of the site at Chambers Road and Morris Hill Road. Again, another view of Chambers Road and Morris Hill, which you can again see in just general area, it's all single-family dwellings. And this is west of the site. And another view west of the site. I think this is Chambers Road. This property is in the East Brainerd Area Plan, which is adopted in May of 2022. It recommends suburban residential place type, which is primarily single-family detached dwellings. Townhomes are listed as a secondary use if you meet some criteria. This proposed use and zone does not meet that criteria. It's not located on an A street. It's not served by public transit. It's not located on a corner lot. So staff recommended to deny, as the RTZ zone will introduce townhomes as a use in the area that's primarily single family. It doesn't comply with the land use plan, which recommends single family attached dwellings. And the current R1 zone is more appropriate. It's more compatible with adjacent land uses at this location. So staff recommended to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? I do want to remind everybody, but the applicant has already indicated that they'd like to defer for 30 days. We certainly can defer for 30 days. We can take action to defer. We can take action to approve. We can take action to deny. So all because an applicant has requested a deferral does not mean they are automatically granted that deferral. So, sure, Mr. Bird.
In the staff report, it says RTZ zone would introduce, sorry, let me back up. The surrounding development form consists of suburban single-family residential lots ranging from 0.13 to multiple acres. And then 2 sentences down, it says the surrounding development form does not exceed 2 dwelling units per acre. I'm just looking for clarity there. What is the range of density? Because it seems like 0.13 acre lots would be closer to 8 units per acre.
It's a mixture.
Make sure we're
On the adjacent residential along Explorer Lane, we calculated a density of 1.55. And then on Chambers Road and Morris Hill, it's roughly less than 1 dwelling units per acre. Again, this really had more, not the density per se, it's more of the introducing a different form.
Right. I
And,
just want to get a handle on what the density is so we know what we're working with.
These are larger lots than you typically see in a typical subdivision. I'm assuming this at the time was developed on septic tanks. Now sewers are in this general vicinity. We looked at it more from the land use
From
perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, we'll hear from the applicant.
So I appreciate your time, and I don't want to repeat what staff has already told you, so I'll just share in addition to what the staff shared. We've got 2.9 acres of green space we're preserving. The pond on the property is going to be preserved. We are avoiding the floodplain and floodway.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right, well, you've got some neighbors here that have got some concerns. I want to hear from them. Thank you. If you're here and you're in opposition and you'd like to speak, come on up to the mic. Sir, do you see that little box right there in front of you?
Yes.
Yep. It's got a yellow light and a red light on it. The red light means all the time's over for all of opposition, and the yellow light means there's 1 minute remaining. But I'm assuming everybody that's behind you wants to speak as well. So if you don't mind, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jose Herrera. My address is 8509 Chambers Road, and I also have a lot is 8533 Chambers Road. So my property is directly across from this proposed development. But first of all, I would like to say to the staff, thank you very much for denying this application, because that's basically the reason why we are here is that area, all the properties, people have an acre or less, and people have been there for a long time. I've been there over 20 years. There is a lady, she's not here, but she signed, I went around the neighborhood and we have a petition, people that I can give you a copy of this.
Can you hand that to Mr. Maybe here on the end?
So there is her name is Janice. She has been in that area, her family, for like 100 years. She's had a handicapped son that, he's in a wheelchair, and she doesn't want to move. And if this development gets approved, the traffic will be really crazy in that street. Right now, one of the problems, and I think the transportation group also recommendation was to deny based on the traffic. It is very narrow. Basically, only one car can fit on Chambers Road. If somebody else is coming on that road, you have to kind of pull to the side and let the other car go through. So can you imagine if you have 74 townhomes, which about 2 cars per house, it would be crazy. The traffic will be crazy there. I can show you, I got a picture also where it shows a car that is waiting for this lady who was driving this car for her. So he pulled over there in order to go through.
Can you give that to Mr. Maybe as well?
And then you can also see trash cans, that are basically on the street because there is not enough room for people to access, that road. So that's one issue. The other issue will be I think the Croy Engineering Group, in a letter that they sent to a few of us, they didn't send it to everybody in the neighborhood. They say that they guarantee that these properties that they are going, these townhomes will not be for rental. And I don't think they can guarantee that, honestly. I don't think anybody can say that this is not going to be for rental. If they build those houses and they become rental houses, the value of all our properties is going to depreciate. It is going to be really ruin, basically our entire lives in this neighborhood will go down the drain. There is another person that is building 2 new houses. I think you guys show those 2 new houses. Those 2 new houses are being developed also not for rental, but for single family, and they're going to be sold because I talked to the guys who are building those houses, and they confirmed that to me that they are not for rental. They will be selling those houses. So if this development gets approved, I don't think anybody's going to buy those houses because they are right there across also from where the major acreage is, which is 7.25 acres. So it's very inconvenient for all of us. Like I said, the traffic is really horrible there. It will be horrible. The safety will be really bad for all of us. Right now, we have the privilege of being able to walk up and down that street. Most of us have pets. We walk our pets. Even the original owners of those 2 properties that are proposed to be developed, they used to, before they died, they passed away. One of them was actually a councilman for a long time. He used to walk in that street when he was already, before he died, as part of his daily exercises, he would walk on Chambers Road up and down.
There's a couple of folks that are behind you that I want to make sure to give them the opportunity to speak.
So all those things will be really ruined. The history of that area will be ruined with this development. So again, I appreciate the staff. I appreciate the transportation group that already have denied. And I really would like to put a motion that you don't even consider postponing this. All of us have taken a day off from work. So if you please, allow us to deny this today for good, so we don't have to lose another day of job, of work coming over here in a month again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time. I'll be very brief. He said most of what I'd say. My name is James Grant. I live on 1717 Explorer Lane. And I would just want to say Chambers Road is in bad need of repair, let alone trucks running down it trying to build it. As you can see on the picture that was up there, 2 cars cannot pass at the same time. If you look closely, the shoulder of the road is slowly eroding away because cars are having to drive on it to keep from hitting one another. Can you imagine if we added another 200 cars, including people living and visiting in these residents in this area? As far as the floodplain goes, I don't know about you, but I could fish in my front yard every time it rains. That's all I have to say. I also think we should deny the motion to put this over. I think we need to close the door on this now. The whole reason I bought this property is because my wife found a house that was in the middle of the woods in a quiet area in the middle of town. It's the whole reason we bought this area. And putting another 200 souls within a mile radius or less is just absurd. Thank you.
How much time is left? Okay, thank you.
John Moynihan, 1558 Gem Place. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, in summary, I see no compelling reason to deviate from the existing zoning on this site. Item 2, local transportation infrastructure or roads, as you all know, have not kept up with development along Morris Hill Road in East Brainerd. And 3, this type of development will only increase the traffic congestions and problems we have now. So I'd like you to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for letting us speak today. My name is Miles Heckerman. I've lived on Morin Road, 8395 Morin Road, for a little over 3 years now. And the traffic issue is one, once you're on these roads like Morin, Chambers, and Petty, that's half the battle won. But the bigger problem is the amount of traffic we have out on Morris Hill. Routinely, at least 2 or 3 times a week, I have to wait, and I'm happy to do so, to let someone out of Morin Road, which is about the same width as Chambers. Well, I fear the day I'm going to be distracted or in a hurry and just proceed without looking ahead, because I'm going to hit somebody when I do that. And it's a fear that I've made my children aware of as they have become of the age to drive. But beyond that traffic issue and how you've heard that, it's only going to get worse. The other issue is this is a floodway, not just a flood zone. So I would want you, if you're going to entertain this at all, and as a real estate appraiser for the past 23 years, the lifeblood of my career is development. So I don't come to you today anti-development. I would just say that we really need to look at what's going to be done to facilitate the runoff from this sizable development, because it is we've already had problems when we moved to Morin Road from the sewer lines, which are easements on my property, backing up and creating small creeks of their own. Now, can all of that be fixed? Sure. But if we facilitated a solution before we made all of this change, we might avoid the pain that kind of runoff is going to create. I just think it's a massive change, and certainly not disagreeable to development, but R1 would be the way to go here. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you. We're out of time to hear any comments from opposition. Okay. Thank y'all. You've heard the concerns. You've got an opportunity to respond to those.
Okay. Appreciate your time again. Again, we would like to again request for deferral so that we can meet with these individuals and share with them what our plans are. One issue that I neglected to include earlier is we are proposing widening Chambers Road along the frontage of the development. And it is proposed for sale structures as opposed to rental structures. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Thank you. No, go ahead, Councilman Hill.
Every mic is different in every room. The thing that I find most compelling about the decision that the staff recommended on this case is the fact that the proposal is not compatible with the Area 11 East Brainerd plan. And make the point within the staff recommendation that the plan identifies the site as a suburban residential place type, which would include single-family detached as the primary use. The applicant has made the argument that this development and rezone would in fact match the secondary place type of townhomes between 2 to 4 units, but this doesn't actually meet the criteria as listed within the plan, which would be that those would be served by public transit, located on a street or corner, et cetera. So personally, I feel like the fact that we have a almost brand new Area 11 East Brainerd plan says this is appropriate to deny, in my opinion.
Other comments? Mr. Brown?
Prior to our planning commission meeting today, I know you want to take time to meet with the residents now, but anything done proactively prior to this meeting today?
We sent letters to the tax parcel information that we could find on GIS to all the adjoining property owners. We made phone calls to those that we could find phone numbers for. Our intention was to have a public meeting, but because of the holidays, we couldn't find a place to host it. And so we did the phone calls and the letters in lieu of.
Understood. Thanks.
Sir, I'm sorry, the time for public comments ended. We have staff we have staff recommending deny. We've got an applicant asking to defer. What's the will of the commission? Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I struggle with the compatibility issues as well. Like Councilwoman Hill suggested, I think I'm going to make the motion to deny and would encourage the applicant to nonetheless meet with the opposition today in preparation for the city council meeting. Maybe you can work through some changes then, but I just don't see how this is compatible given the area plan that was just executed. So I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to deny and it has been properly seconded. Any further discussion?
Chairman, if this gets denied today, is it a 12-month period?
Well, if it's denied at city council, it's 12 months before they can.
It's 9 months in the city.
9 months. Before
12 months in the county, 9 months in the city from council action.
So just remind the applicant he has about 9 months to do a little bit more homework and connect with the community.
If council.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Correct. I stand correct.
And staff also just, if the zoning is denied, it can still be developed in the current zoning of R1 with single family. It doesn't mean anything will not happen on this property. It just may, if it's denied, it can be developed with single family homes. Thank you. I count R1's about 5 in the city. I got 46 gross. I didn't take out anything for roads or sewer. So roughly, I guess 35, 40.
We have a motion to deny. It has been seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case on the agenda is a mandatory referral. It's 2023-0005, and it's located at the 7500 block of Pinewood Drive, and it's a sewer easement abandonment. Is there any opposition present? Second. We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is 2023-0007, and it's located at 6525 Garner Road, and it's a special permit for residential plan unit development. And Staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we also, RPA staff did receive emails in opposition as well.
All right. And is the applicant present? All right. Okay. All right, Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, this is case 2023-007. Again, this is not a zoning case. This is a request for a special exceptions permit for a planned unit development. The property will remain zoned R1. Property to the north, south, east, and west is R1. If you look further west, there is some R2. But in this general vicinity, that it's all pretty much single-family detached dwellings. This property is roughly 8.44 acres. A number of units proposed in this development is 46. And that's a density of 5.44. There is some history on this site. Back in 2015, there was a request to rezone this R1 property to R3 for 86 apartments. Ultimately, this case was denied at City Council in 2015. Here's an aerial view of the property. It's currently vacant. To the north is single family. To the south is single family. To the west along Tunnel Boulevard, that's single family detached. And to the east is single family. This property does abut Garner Road to the south of the screen. There are some steep slopes in this property, which I've highlighted in the red in this general area that's above 25%. Here's a view of the site from Garner Road. Another view of the site from Garner. Just another view of the site from Garner Road. This is north of the site, the single family dwelling. This is south of the site, again, more single family detached dwellings. East of the site. And this is west of the site. I think it's Tunnel Boulevard. Just to the left of the screen, that's Garner Road to the south and east here. This is a view of the sites on the left-hand side looking down Garner Road. This property is located in the Eastdale Plan, which was adopted in 1998. That plan's, well, I mean, it's really old, from 1998. There was no land use plan recommendation in that plan. It said the predominant land use in Eastdale is single family, with some duplexes and multifamily scattered throughout. New development should be carefully designed to fit in with the architectural style and scale of the surrounding neighborhood. Again, we don't have a current updated plan for this area. This is the PUD plan that was submitted with the application. You have one entrance off Garner Road. These are all what you would call a HPR or multifamily. They look like single family, but they're all on one lot. These are private roads, I believe, from what I remember is being proposed. Staff recommend to approve the conditions. The proposal with conditions is compatible with surrounding land uses, which again is single family. Proposed development within this development is single family. The proposal does meet the PUD development requirements. So staff had two conditions: single family detached units only. The development will follow a horizontal property regime, which allows for development of multiple detached units on one lot. And parking areas shall not be located in 25-foot PUD perimeter boundary. The applicant did submit some site plan or some renderings of what these micro units would look like. I'll flip through those. He also provided a video presentation if y'all would like to see that. I think I'll try to show that, but these are some images of what this would look like.
You're showing that. It's R1, right?
It's R1.
And the staff says that under R1, they can put multiple lots.
Because they're doing a PUD.
With a PUD.
With a PUD, you can do multifamily in R1 PUD in the city. So you can do HBR in R1.
Have we ever seen that before?
This is the first one. We reached out to Development Review and Permitting. As long as the PUD, if it's approved, they can do multiple dwellings, even though these are single family detached on one lot because of the PUD. If it didn't have a PUD, no, you couldn't do this. Each lot would have to be on lot frontage with public street frontage on each lot.
Okay.
Now, these are private streets as well. And there's just some more renderings of yes, it couldn't be an apartment complex under captive 5. So.
Mr. Maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question for Steph. I guess, could you clarify what y'all's thoughts are on requiring to be an HPR?
Oh, it's not a requirement for HPR. That's what he's trying to do. We just clarified these are single family detached as part of the horizontal property regime.
Okay. So if I'm reading that right, though, if that's the condition, wouldn't it be meaning he would have to do that? He wouldn't have the option of not doing the
He would. We struggle. What do you call these type of homes? They're single family detached, but they're all on one lot. They're not necessarily multifamily either. So that's why we're trying to help development review and permitting. These are single family detached on one lot under horizontal property regime. So somebody could go in and all of a sudden, I want to now switch this into a traditional apartment complex, multi-story.
But I mean, why wouldn't the one condition that it just be
single family?
not, that it just be single family not be enough? Why do we have
Because
to
single
have-
family would indicate you have to have your own lot on road frontage, with each lot having access to a public road.
So if in staff's opinion, single family detached means it's on its own lot with its own driveway and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Okay.
This is no different than doing an HPR and R3, but you don't have to specify that in R3. Since this is R1 through a PUD, we felt to help development review and permitting, it'd be more clarification on their end, what the proposed use actually is. No, we don't have a problem with it. It's just these, let me go back to the site plan. Some of these units, I don't know if you can see them here. Let me highlight my screen. Laser pointer. These lots here, these are single family homes. They don't have lot frontage. These don't have lot frontage. So you couldn't get a building permit. The only way to do this is call these multifamily, but they're not multifamily in essence. It doesn't look like a in the county. If y'all feel as a planning commission that condition shouldn't apply, it's certainly y'all's choice.
I mean, I think it is jumping out to everybody that it is a little odd, because if it were R3, I mean, we do have HPRs throughout the city where it's not, the zonings aren't conditioned requiring that they be HPR.
Right.
So
I think when
that-
we struggle with staff in the zoning code, what are these HPRs? What are these structures? Yes, they look like single family. You're not going to know if there's a lot line there or not. But they're all on one lot. Is that single family or is that multifamily?
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, I know it's confusing. We discussed this forever as a staff.
Mr. Maybe?
And I get where the confusion is there. And I think that may have been a good workaround to kind of make sure we're clear on what we're approving today or not approving. It makes me think, and we can get back to this at a more appropriate time, that we probably need to work on the definition of what a single family house is for the future.
Yeah, because versus these things, I mean, because for the general public, it's going to look like a single family attached home. But from trying to help development review and permitting, in their eyes, it's multiple single family attached on one lot. You can't do that in R1. You can through a PUD. That's what we were trying to tell them. Yes, but they're also doing an HPR, but you can sell it be simple with the land underneath. Through the
Thank you,
HPR.
Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? All right. Whoever wants to speak on behalf of the applicants, welcome to come up.
How you doing?
If you don't mind, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Rashad Jones Jennings. My address is 1952 Golden Gate Lane, Decatur, Georgia. And so what's the question that you all have about the?
We don't so much have questions as this is just an opportunity for you to tell us what it is that you're wanting to do and why. And
Oh yes, so
your plans for the
Do you mind
property.
playing the video. And while he's pulling it up, I'll go ahead and tell about it. We're doing 46 micro homes. I have a similar project that I'm finishing up in Atlanta right now that sold out, before we even stuck a shovel in the ground. So there is a market for it. It's affordable housing. I think it helps the 5,000 unit shortage that we have here in Chattanooga. questions on that.
Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions. First, you're saying that these are going to be affordable. What's your price point going to be per unit?
They're going to start in the 180s, and if I can get some help from the city with some subsidies, we can even lower that price.
And how many square feet are they going to be?
They range from 400 square feet up to 650 square feet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I think there's some folks here that are maybe have some concerns or want to speak to it. Maybe we hear from them, and then you'll have an opportunity to address any of those questions or
No
concerns.
problem.
If you're here and you're in opposition, please come on up to the mic. And as you saw earlier, we do keep that time to 9 minutes. So keep your comments brief if there's a couple people behind you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carl Ditto. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and also Mr. Willie Lawrence. We both own houses. His is adjoining to this property and mine is slightly removed, but they are both served by a driveway which essentially goes right through the middle of this property. And we oppose this based solely on the fact that the site plan as drafted eliminates our driveway, therefore eliminates our access to our houses and landlocks our property. And we have spoken to the owner and Mr. Parks concerning this. They have said that they are willing to make accommodations for that one way or another, depending on some other factors, as there's a 15-foot easement. We don't know if that allows general access or if it's specific to a couple of lots on the east side. But basically, our driveway goes right through the middle of this property. His veers off to the northeast to his house. Mine goes all the way to the rear property line and then off to the east to service a lot, which is 3 lots up. And without this is landlocked. So I would ask that you put a condition on this that says that they must preserve our right of access to our property. And that's the only thing that we have against the site plan is drawn.
Do you know if any of the deeds or any of those sorts of things speak to your easement? Do you know if the deed on the property has your easement recorded through it?
As far as I know, there is not, but these 2 houses have been here for over 40 years. That driveway has been there for over 40 years. So if there's any attorneys on the commission here, you understand what a prescriptive easement is and what the statutory requirements are to establish that. And we far exceed that. Mr. Lawrence has owned his house for 30 years now, and he's been using it for in excess of the statutory required period of time as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Tucker. I actually live at 2035 Dogwood Drive, which is at the corner of Dogwood and Garner. So if you come up Garner, my house is the corner lot. I have concerns about this. So speaking of developments like this, my mom lives in Columbia, Tennessee, which is, it doesn't really matter, but it is units like this. And what has happened to those units is that they actually turned into public housing. There's already a high crime rate in the area that we live in, and it is a concern if that is going to be an area that could potentially be that is going to, 1, decrease our property value, 2, increase the amount of traffic that already flows through that area, possibly enticing more of the people who come through there who cause the issues. Thank you.
My name is Rosalind Hurd. I did submit my comments as opposition of what's going to take place if you allow it. I live at 3612 East Glen Court, and you sold the boxed in property, about 8 acres. Been there 23 years. The applicant has applied for 46 micro tiny homes. I did do a little research. I saw the properties in Atlanta. They only have 29. Why so many? 46 boxed in with one way out. Because of the properties up on Doolittle Road, you'll have to have a retaining wall for them or their property.
Ma'am, just a reminder, that you're here to address us, ma'am, right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're addressing us.
Oh, I'm so
Okay,
sorry.
just making sure we're staying
But,
focused.
okay.
We're the center of
the
attention
property
here.
is 8 acres, but you got people on top of the hill on Doolittle Road, and then you got this squared off property. The presentation was really, really nice, but why so many micro homes? As the lady stated before, property taxes are going to go up, and our property value is going to deflate, which is going to decrease. That's my concern. So many, you're going to approve property to change, to squeeze in 46 micro homes. It's going to cause a lot of congestion because of that one roadway out. If you come and look for yourselves, you'll see what the others will have to say as well. 46 micro homes is just too many tiny homes in that patch of land. Thank you so much.
Afternoon. My name is Delora Kelly. I live at 3608 East Glen Court. I have a deaf child. And already now the problem is kids come through on ATVs and everything through the yard. I have placed do not trespass. I've put several signs up. And the only thing I can do is call the police. And with this amount of people moving back into the community, I just think it'll make it worse.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Monterey Tucker. I'm a resident at 2035 Dogwood Drive as well. I did a petition for speed humps because there's so much traffic that comes through the neighborhood already as it is. Most of the cars trying to avoid the traffic light at Wilcox and Tunnel, and they come through Garner, hit Dogwood, and they just wide open. We've had houses that have been hit by cars. I've almost been hit trying to pull into my driveway as well as pulling out. So there's a lot of speeding and stuff or whatever in the area. Changing this to the PUD would actually decrease our property value. We're already at R1. We would like to stay at R1 and go from there. There's a few other properties that are in the area as well that are being developed. Those are still R1. So we would like to keep it R1 if possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come back up.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Parks. I'm an engineer with March Adams Engineering. I've heard what the owners have said, and I kind of go through those quickly here. We did meet with the two landlocked neighbors to the east. We are completely aware that they have a dirt driveway that runs through the property, and we're going to intend to provide them a new driveway. We have to work out the easement issues of how that would look, but we would completely agree to provide them a new driveway either directly onto Garner Road or up to the road to the north. Either way, they were amicable to either. I would add that there is some grade change. We've left a large swatch of green space on the east where that grade is. So instead of having 45 single family R1 units that would need to grade into that and require retaining walls, about making the pocket development, we keep the development to the more development friendly part of the lot where it's flatter onto the west. And so we're not increasing the density from R1 as it currently is allowed. So we have the same number of units as the current zoning allows. In fact, we probably would provide less traffic because you're not going to have 3 cars in one of these micro homes traditionally. I mean, it's going to be mostly, single folks or smaller families that would live in these homes. So it'd be a little bit less traffic than R1, traditional R1. What's the other question? There was, I can't speak to the ATV traffic. I mean, developing this would probably, improve the property value more so than hurt the property value in our experience in this type of neighborhood. Any other questions?
Any questions for the applicant?
Oh, yes, I want to. So I was kind of taking notes while everybody had their time to speak. One thing, this property will be gated, so it help control some of the traffic. I know one of the women said that it'll bring the property value down. This will actually help the property value because this will be a homeowner community. and everyone knows that home ownership changed the dynamics of a neighborhood. I'm here. I'm the type of developer that I come to build a community up. I want to work with the neighbors. I want to work with the city, and I want to see things, building up in our city. And one of the things is bringing home ownership to our neighborhood. So for those concerns, I just want to make sure. I just want to let everybody know that, the property values will not be going down. These will be homeowners. This will not be a renter neighborhood, and it will not turn into what the young lady referred to as, rundown project. So.
Thank you. Ma'am, I saw your hand, but I did want to just recognize that I saw it. The time for public comments ended. So are there any questions for the applicant? We'll say that the easement issue is not ours to deal with. So whatever happens, I don't want to hear that in one of the conditions. That's a private matter between the current property owner and the neighbors, and the county and the city don't want to get into those private matters. Councilwoman Hill.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve. However, I do have some questions remaining about the horizontal property regime and whether that needs to be in or out. And I would like to get some feedback from my esteemed panel members here.
I will tell. Mr. Payne raised the question, and I think Mr. Mabey was speaking to it as well. I think it is odd to see it in there, but I will say that our company's done a lot of horizontal property regime development, and LDO really struggles with it on account of the fact that we are building what we all would refer to as single family homes, and they're accustomed to rear yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, front yard setbacks. There are none of those in HPR, and so I can understand why staff is trying to solve the problem, but I think ultimately there's probably a better way to do it, and that's with some definition change or something like that. I think it's odd for something that, in the same way that I'm telling, just me speaking to the applicant and speaking to those who have private easements through those are private property rights issues, which would be dealt with through the courts, not city council or the planning commission. And in all practical reality, a horizontal property regime is a set of documents that is a set of easements and a declaration saying, here's how the property is going to be used. So I think it is the exact same. Staff asking us to put in a condition referencing horizontal property regime is the same as a property owner asking us to memorialize their easement rights through the property. Both are private matters, not the city council or legislative body. So I don't know that. I don't think it should be a condition, but I understand why it is, because LDO doesn't really know how to handle them.
Yeah, we can. In the meantime, we can, not with this case, but future case, we can work on some, because you're right. LDO looks at, well, these are not multifamily; they're single family. Where's all the lot lines? And that's why we're trying to help with that. It's just hard.
It is.
And maybe through the zoning code rewrite, we can address that.
My intuition, and I'm not a lawyer, but my intuition is that this should just say single family detached units only and leave it at that.
It's the same way we would deal with it if it were RTZ and we wanted it to be single family detached and not townhomes or condos. I think that would be fine.
And I'm just thinking out loud, maybe the motion could be that the intention of the single family detached is to allow multiple on one lot. That way we can show the minutes to LDO that it was not to be single family with each home on its own lot. The intention behind what the Planning Commission did today was allow multiple single family dwellings on one lot. If that makes sense, and strike the remainder.
That makes sense. They can be.
Through HPR, they can.
Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you all. I appreciate your input on that. All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve, and I would like to say I think this is a form that it's time we had in Chattanooga. Pocket Neighborhood is really interesting. So I'd like to make a motion to approve with the following conditions: single-family detached units only, understanding that the intent of this approval is to allow a rezone is to allow multiple single-family dwellings on one lot. Further, second condition that parking areas shall not be within the 25-foot perimeter PUD setback requirement.
We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Vroon.
Just one call, and I think one of the residents suggested that this would actually rezone a property, and I just want to make sure that's not the case, right? I mean, like the issuance of a residential PUD does not change the zoning status from R1.
No, sir. It keeps this R1. This approval just for a PUD to go on top to do something a little more different based on that site plan that was submitted. That becomes the controlling plan, if you will, for how that site's developed.
Does staff need any further clarification on the conditions?
I think we're good.
Okay. We have motion with conditions, and it has been seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Next case on the agenda is item 4. It's case 2023-0008. It's located at 1800 block of Watauga Street, and it's an application to rezone from R2 to UGC and has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? And is the applicant present? Okay. It's like having Mike Price here in opposition. All right, go ahead.
Sure. This is case 2023-008. This is a request to rezone from R2 residential zone to UGC for proposed multifamily residential. Acres of this property is 0.14. Proposed number of units is 4. That's a density of 28.5. Looking at the zoning map, you see there is no UGC in this general vicinity. It's R2 to the north and south, R2 to the east and west. There has not been any zoning history on this site, and I have the site highlighted in red, the red site language here. In 2022, there was a request to rezone 1501 East 18th Street from R2 to RTZ with conditions. That was approved. The closest UGC to this is to the north. See it up here on the red leader line going to it. That was in 2021. That was rezoned to UGC from M2 with conditions. This is a vacant piece of property. To the north, you have a single-family dwelling and a duplex and a vacant piece of property. To the south is vacant land. To the west is single-family. And to the east, across Watauga Street, is single-family. This is in the 500-year floodplain. This is a view of the site. North of the site along Watauga Street. Again, another view north of the site. You can see some duplexes. That's the south of the site, which is single-family attached dwellings. This is south of the site where you can see some type of commercial endeavor or warehousing facility. East of the site, which is single-family dwelling. This is the west of the site, which again are more single-family attached dwellings. This property is in the historic River to Ridge area plan, which is adopted in 2021. It recommends urban residential, primary uses being single-family detached, ADUs, and 2 to 4 units per lot. And currently, we're not using the 2 to 4 units per lot. We found the better way to deal with that is through conditions. Staff recommends to approve. Is this request is compatible with the Area 3 plan? It is compatible with adjacent land uses and development form. Currently, the UGC zone is the only zone that allows higher density on small urban infill lots. We did recommend some conditions. Those 3 conditions are residential uses only, maximum of 4 units, and a maximum building height of 2.5 stories and 35 feet. Staff did look at the current zoning in terms of what they could do with a zoning as it is, and it's such a small lot. Really, the only way to get more than one unit would be to rezone it. You could do one single family and ADU, but to get to do a duplex, it doesn't meet the lot size requirements, such as is a smaller lot. RTZ would not work because of lot size. So UGC is really the only zone to allow more density, more units at this location. So this comes to you from staff with approved with 3 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff? All right, we'll hear first from the applicant.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Jones with Stone Creek Consulting. Address is 1112 Wilmouth Road in Dunlap, Tennessee. We're good with the conditions as they're listed, and I'm actually just going to yield my time to Justin to speak, and I'll respond if I need to afterwards.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Turson with C&E 1500 Chestnut Street. We are actually not here in opposition to the development type. Actually, adding a traditional mix of housing types to a community can make sure families at any stage of life has an opportunity to stay within their neighborhoods. Whether you are a young family looking for a single family home, a senior wanting a rental where you don't have to maintain your yard, or a young person who's looking for their first studio to move into. C&E supports these projects. We also think that they provide additional ridership on the bus line, which can lead to more frequent and reliable bus service. The only reason that I'm here talking to you is to ensure that we get the staff recommended conditions that are on there, because UGC is an inappropriate zone for these areas, and that we also understand that this is the only zone currently within our program that allows us to build these type of missing units. And I want to reinforce that with you so that as you go through the process of developing a new zoning code, that this is an issue that is rectified.
Thank you. Point noted. Yes.
With the conditions, yes.
We have a motion to approve with the staff recommended conditions. It has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is 2023-0009, and this is located at 2003 South Beach Street, and it's an application to rezone from R2 to UGC. It has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present?
I was just looking at Justin. I don't know. We have several cases. It's just the only one. Same comments go across.
Are you sure? I mean, I think it was good. It was well done. We'll just give you a moment of silence, and we'll all remember all the great things that you said. Mr. Jones, you know these conditions and you're good with them. We have a motion to approve the staff recommendation, which is to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is 2023-0010, and this is located at 2109 Ralston Street, and it's an application to rezone from R1 to RTZ. And this case has a staff recommendation to deny. Is there any opposition present? All right, Mr. Schultz.
Sure. This is case 2023-0010. This is a request to rezone from R1 to RTZ, residential townhouse zero lot line for multifamily. If you look at the zoning map, this is all, everything to the north, south, east, and west is R1. It's approximately 0.19 acres in size. 4 units are proposed. That's a density of 21. This site was in the Orchard Knob Churchill neighborhood zoning study that downzoned this property from R3 to R1. In 2023 Ralston Street applied to rezone from R2 to bring existing duplex into compliance. The application was actually withdrawn. There has been no zoning case on this property other than through the zoning study from several years ago. Looking at the adjacent land uses, it's all single-family attached dwellings in this vicinity to the north, south, east, and west. This is a vacant piece of property. It is in the 500-year floodplain. Here's a view of the site. Another view of the site. This is looking down Ralston Street. North of the site, which is a single family dwelling. South of the site, single family dwelling. East of the site, a single family dwelling. Another view east of the site, which appears to be a duplex. And then this is west of the site, again, another single family dwelling. This property is in the Area 3 Historic River to Ridge Plan, which is adopted in 2021. The difference in this case and the other cases, this place type recommendation is urban residential with a single family overlay on top. So the land use recommendation is primarily single family detached dwellings. So this is different than the previous cases. And then this property has an overlay on top of it, which recommends single family detached dwellings or ADUs. Again, this site is located in Area 3 Plan, which recommends single family detached residential uses only. During our review, this is made up of two lots of record, which is lot 84 and 85, which would allow 2 single family dwellings. You could also do 2 ADUs on the site, which still get you to 4 units on this property. So staff recommended to deny, keep the current zoning as is, which is R1, which is supported by the Area 3 Plan.
Any questions for staff? Mr. Payne?
I just want to make sure that I understand. You're okay with 4 units? You would rather have 2 single family with ADUs than 4 townhouses?
Yes, and quite frankly, the plan, which went through a public process, stated this area should be single family. It's 2 lots of record. We're thinking the current zoning allows the developer to get, in theory, those 4 units. So ADUs you cannot sell.
Sure, you can record an HPR.
I think the ADU says no, you can't do HPR.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We specifically addressed that through the ADU ordinance because we knew somebody would try that. Not saying names.
All right, we'll hear from you.
Alan Jones of Stone Creek Consulting, 1112 Wilmouth Road in Dunlap, Tennessee. So, and when you've going into this project, we can build 4 units. When we looked at how to develop this site, because Ida's owned this property for quite a while now, and she's, ready to kind of move forward and help some infill community housing in this neighborhood. I would bring Justin up, but it's outside of C&D's district, so I don't think he can speak on this site. But the same sentiment applies to this neighborhood as well. If we were to build 2 single family homes with the ADUs to kind of get the same square footage of the kind of the quadplex style that we're trying to do, the quadplex, you're probably looking at about, between 1,000 and 1,100 square feet per unit, which fits this neighborhood. All the single family homes in this neighborhood are in that 1,000 to 1,300 square foot range. To kind of get that same square footage on the site to make the site, economical for us, and also to keep the rents somewhat down. You're looking at a 1,500 to 1,600 square foot home plus a 700 square foot ADU. The discussion I think I was here a few months ago, and I think the mayor was actually here and asked why the rezone versus the ADUs. If this is a home ownership and looking at a way to get an additional rental unit, that's a fantastic idea, which I think that's why council moved forward with this whole ADU process. With Ida and her company, they own multiple properties throughout town. And so this is more of a rental style product. So having that desire to sell off an ADU or to sell off, a single family home, that's not in her development portfolio. So we're looking at rental units regardless of 4 units. So yes, we can move forward with 2 1,500 to 1,600 square foot units and 2 700 square foot units. But those 1,500 square foot units are going to get a little more pricey given this neighborhood. So we'd like to be able to, do 4 smaller units in that, 11 to 1,200 square foot range, which I think is more compatible for those that be looking to live or move into this community.
Any questions for Mr. Jones?
And if I can add, ironically, the one zone I didn't ask for UGC is the denial, not the RTZ, which just seems the irony. Sure.
Yeah.
I feel the same about this as I have about the other plans that I've referred to, where we have an area plan that is relatively recent, where we've decided as a city that this is going to be an R1 area. Does not change the validity of what you're saying about the actual cost to build things. Nonetheless, that doesn't supersede the fact that, in my mind, that Chattanooga said, sure, we are okay with 4 units, but we want them to look in this particular form for this particular area. So I'm going to move to deny.
We have a motion to deny. It has been properly seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Lyle.
So I thought Councilwoman Hill brought up an excellent point. So the form of the structure would be that relatively, it could potentially look just like a large single family structure, which, so from the outside, we could look at it and it would appear to be the same.
Right. It's very similar to a lot of the homes that have been built in other communities in Chattanooga, where it's a larger footprint, but it looks like a single family house. So it still fits the neighborhood. It's just a larger single family house, sure. But instead of a 4-bedroom house, you have a 4-unit house.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Council.
So it is. All right, next case is 22, is agenda item 7. It's 2023-0012 located at 2209 Bailey Avenue. And it's an application to rezone from R2 to UGC and has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? And assuming, Mr. Jones, you're familiar with the conditions? Yes. And you're fine with this? All right, we have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is 2023-0013, and it's located at 1913 and 1915 South Kelly, and it's an application to rezone from R2 to C5. Commercial and what is this? Rezone from, I'm sorry. Let me start over. Rezone from R2 and C5 to UGC, has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? All right. We know Mr. Jones is present, so we'll hear from Mr. Schultz.
This is case 2023-13. This is a request to rezone from R2 residential zone and C5 neighborhood commercial zone to UGC for multifamily. Looking at the zoning map on the screen, you have R2 to the north, R2 to the south, to the west of this side is R4, to the east of this side is R3, and then southeast is C2. And if you go further south of the site, across East 20th, you have some manufacturing zone sitting there, and then west is R4. The size of this property is 0.31 acres in size. Proposed number of units on this property is 26 units. That's a density of about 84. Portion of this site, the C5 portion, was rezoned in 1980. And then in 2008, there was a request to rezone just south of this site from R2 to R4, but the application was withdrawn by the applicant. And then across the street in 2005, the South Kelly Street, that property was rezoned from R2 to R3. This is currently a single-family dwelling, 2 single-family dwellings on this property. To the north is single-family detached dwellings. Immediately abutting this site is a parking lot, and then further south across East 20th, single-family. Then further south is a parking lot and some commercial uses. To the west of this site is a school or institutional use. And then along Willow Street, you do have some single-family detached. And to the east of this site is a vacant piece of property. This property is in the 500-year floodplain. This is a view of the site, what those single-family dwellings look like. This is north of the site. Again, more single-family detached dwellings. This is south of the site, which is that parking lot that abuts the property. This is east of the site, which is the R3 property. And this is west of the site, which is the school. This property is in Area 3 Historic River Ridge Plan, which is adopted in 2021. It recommends urban residential, primary uses being single-family detached and ADUs. Again, it does allow 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre, but we're doing more control of that through conditions in terms of massing. The proposal is compatible with surrounding land uses and development form. It does meet the secondary use criteria in Area 3 plan. The UGC zone allows for greater density than the RTZ in the current zoning. Staff recommended to approve with conditions, residential uses only, a maximum building height of 3 stories. So this comes to you from the staff with approve with 2 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff? All right, Mr. Jones.
Good afternoon again. Alan Jones with Stone Creek Consulting. So this site in particular, if this site was 10 properties to the north, I'd say this would not be an appropriate location for this development. I think given the context of where we are with the surrounding UGC, the industrial and C3 or R3, C2 and the surrounding industrial, I think this is a good transition area into the neighborhood. And I think we're about a block away from the Middletown development that's going on in this community as well. So we have reached out to the Chattanooga Charter School of Excellence. That's who's here today. So we've had some discussions with them. I'll let him touch on his points, but we will be reaching out and trying to be the best of neighbors as we can with this project. I know their primary concern, or at least my understanding is their primary concern is the safety of their students, not only during construction, but also after this project is finished. So, if this is approved today, we'll continue to work with the school and maybe look at other conditions that we could put in place between now and City Council to ensure the safety of the students and the school's operation. Primarily making sure that, we only have the primary access is off of Kelly Street and not coming off the alley in the rear. The alley in the back is used by the school for students for ingress, egress. They're one of their fire escape routes for the school. So we want to make sure that we respect that and are cognizant to that as we go into design. But I think other than that, I think, we've talked to the neighbor adjacently or directly to the north of us. That property owner has no issues with our request. And then obviously to the south is the school's parking lot. From a traffic standpoint, right now, there is no curb cut out there. The 2 rental homes that are there, well, one's a rental home, one's kind of just used as storage and kind of an office space for the property owner. Right now, there's no curb cut, so we're going to be able to consolidate all this into one curb cut, coming in off of Kelly Street. We'll probably end up leaving access off the rear to the alley for emergency purposes, but our intentions is to not make that a primary access point so we can work with the school. But I'll yield the rest of my time to Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We'll hear from the opposition.
Good afternoon. My name is Ted Griffin. I'm the co-founder and currently the Chief Operating Officer for Chattanooga Charter Schools of Excellence. That includes the elementary school on 2029 East 23rd Street, which is a block away from 1912 South Willow Street, which is our middle school. The high school will be opening for school in August 2023. You're invited, since I have you all here, you're invited to our open house at 201 East 37th Street on Wednesday, January 11th, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So, but in regards to this property, let me update you a little bit before I can tell you about the concerns. The 1912 South Willow Street property owned by the school, CCSE for short. The parking lot that you referred to is our staff parking. The school owns that property. Across the street from that on East 23rd Street, that open lot, that is our school parking. We currently only have about 8 parking spaces on the 20th Street side that feed into the front of our building. Our building is very constricted by South Willow Street and East 20th Street, and that's our biggest concern here. I'm an advocate for our students, and as Chief Operating Officer, their safety, and their upward. The developer and told them about our issues and had some discussions, and we want to make sure that these conditions hold what we were discussing, that we don't have any contractual relationship with the developer, but we want to ensure these responses that we've gotten back are adhered to and that meet the needs of our school going forward. The issues, most importantly, one being the traffic. When we have arrival and dismissal for both of our schools, which the arrival and dismissal times are about 15 minutes apart, you'll notice that East 23rd Street, we wrap around there from South Willow Street to East 23rd, feeding into our elementary school. 15 minutes later, we're arrival dismissal for our middle school, which is 1912 South Willow Street, adjacent to the developer's property, where we have, the buses line up on East 20th Street. That's where we drop off and pick up students. All of our parents line up across South Willow Street and queue up. And that intersection is, we have staff that maintain and administrate traffic, but there's no physical lit signs or not a lot of street markings in that area. So we have a lot of concerns with how the traffic changes in that area, because we have to make adjustments every year for the safety of our students as well as the community passing through. But also the safety and the egress at the alley behind the school, that is our secondary emergency egress for our building for students. Our primary crosses over East 20th Street into the open field that we share between the elementary and the middle school. And that's a concern for us. As I said before, we're constricted. Once we evacuate the building, as you see, we're right up against the fence, the street, and the building, on South Willow Street, on East 20th Street, as well as in the alleyway. And our goal is to, in emergencies, we have to clear them out in the safest way possible. The original plan that we did discuss with the developer about having access through the alleyway causes a lot of choke points for us. That alleyway is the rear parking for our administrators, but most importantly, our food service access for our building. That's the only service entry we have to the building, is that alleyway. And our dumpster is accessed from 20th Street, right on the corner of that building. So we try to do and place and operate in a way that best suits and serves our students, as well as keeps them and our staff safe. So those were our biggest concerns going forward. The density, how does this new development change the outlook of how our school operates is a concern, as well as the parking, as I've told you earlier, that it is a staff parking that's right on East 23rd Street, and that lot across the street is owned by the school, which is our school parking. We don't have a lot of parking right up against the building. So these are our bigger concerns, and I'll hand some time to our architect, Cliff, if you have any other issues to add.
Sure. Cliff McCormick, HK Architects, 1216 East Main. We've been architect for the charter school. They've grown from 2 classrooms or something in 2013 to 3 buildings, or more than 3 buildings now. I think, Ted said, I don't want to repeat, but to summarize, the big concerns are safety, parking, and I would say alleyway maintenance. That's a 10-foot alley from their fence to potentially the other property line that's very narrow to be accessing a dumpster truck. I'm worried about the fence. I'm worried about a truck being in there when there could be a fire door coming out. The dumpster truck is trying to back up because you just have it. You have a building, maybe 4 feet past the building's fence, then the alley, then their building that's really tight. Concerned about that. We're also concerned about the density. 26 spaces UGC does not require minimum parking. So we have potentially people looking for parking in a neighborhood that is very overparked and is already, if anyone ever goes during drop off and pick up, it seems to be dense to the point of dangerous, I would say, with cars trying to weave their way through. So I'm confused. There's no request for maximum density, maybe less than what's being asked here. It seems like 26 is a lot. 85 DU per acre is quite high. And I would be interested in knowing if there's some lower maximum that could be workable. Other than that, I think Ted has mentioned everything. Yeah, the alley maintenance, if we're accessing dumpsters down that alley, it's not very well maintained at all. Pavement's torn up. That was all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a quick question for staff. Mr. Schultz, do you know, is that a public right of way, the alley, or is that a private alley? Do you know?
I do not know. I'll defer to the applicants. They probably.
Well, I guess it is a public alley. So that being said, if this project was to move forward and the applicant could not do anything to that alley without having to come back to this body and ask to have the alley closed, is that accurate?
Correct. If they want to close the alley, it would come back before this body.
You have access to the alley, right? Right. Currently, we do have access via the alley to the property, but no. That'd be a discussion we could have with the school and the property owners.
Did that answer your question? Mr. Anderson?
Cliff, can you come up for a second? Cliff. You mentioned the 10-foot alley. When you were the architect on the project initially, what were the discussions around this alley being used for? Because I'm going to assume the alley hasn't changed, and that's how it was when you guys built the school. So can you tell me about the discussions about the alley and dumpster at that time?
Correct. Well, the history of the school, there's been a school. This is an old school. It's been here since everyone walked to school and there were no dumpsters. So the building's been, I think 1914 was the first building, or 20s? 20s. So that alley is a public alley. That when it was Chattanooga City Schools, they had a dumpster pad off to one side. They've never, as far as I know, there's never been dumpster access down the alleyway. The school has recently undertaken a very significant exterior stormwater and landscape and fencing project where they've re-fenced the dumpster and made it much nicer. So, but their dumpster still doesn't go. They don't go down the alley for the dumpster. Okay, that's the question.
That was my only question. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
So I think from my response, we're going to continue to have conversations with the school if beyond today and going into city council. If we need to codify some of their concerns as far as primary access being off of Kelly Street, then we're more than happy to work through those conditions. Also with the councilwoman as we kind of get to city council. As far as the density discussion and the number of units, our RPA was in favor of our proposal, but also the way we're designing the site, it's parking underneath with units on top. So right now we have a parking space for every unit that we're providing. The size of these units are going to be geared toward more a one bedroom unit. So the target audience, so to speak, is more of your young professionals or those that are older that are looking to get rid of their yards and want to have a smaller place to live. When folks come to look at this facility to rent, they'll know on the front end you have one parking space and know that there's a school that we need to be sensitive with as far as on-street parking and managing their dismissal and arrival times. But I think from our dumpster access, we can access everything we need to from Kelly Street. I think it might be a little short-sighted to close the alley just for emergency purposes. But we've looked at the operations of this, and we can make the site work with all our primary access for services, both for residents and for trash services from South Kelly. But I think closing that alley, that's just a further discussion we can have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Jones? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilwoman Hill.
I move to approve with the staff conditions.
Second.
We have a motion to approve with conditions. It has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for being here. Next case is 2023-0014, and this is located at the 2600 block of William Street, the 2600 block of Cowart Street, the 200 block of West 27th Street, Dodson Avenue, and it's an application to rezone from R3 UGC and C3 to C3 with conditions. Staff is recommended to deny C3 and approve UGC with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Mr. Schultz.
Sure. This is case 2023-14 down off Broad Street and South William Street off West 26th Street. This is a request to rezone from R3 residential zone, UGC urban general commercial zone with conditions, and C3 central business zone with conditions. To C3 is the request by the applicant. It's roughly 4 acres in size, proposing 300 units. It's a density of 68.6. Its proposed use is multifamily residential. So look at the zoning map. You have a mixture of zones in this location from UGC to C3. To the east, you have R3, RTZ. To the west is UGC, and to the north is UGC. A lot of that UGC was done many years ago in a zoning study along South Broad, I think 2006. The current property to the UGC and C3 has a lot of conditions on it related to setbacks, height, access, off-street parking, and street frontage, the typical C3 conditions you would see on downtown properties. So I won't go through those unless somebody wants to specifically look at those. It's currently vacant with 2 single-family dwellings on the property. To the north is institutional. To the west is office, and some vacant land is currently being under construction. To the south is single family. To the east is vacant and institutional and multifamily. This whole area is starting to transition. This is in the 500-year floodplain. This is a view of the northern portion of the site along William Street. 26th Street is just to the left of the picture. This is a view of the site, 2 of the single family homes that are on the property. This is a view of the site from Cowart Street. Another view of the site from Cowart Street. The site's just on the left-hand side. This is the site from West 27th Street. This is the view of the site from William Street. Another view of the site from William Street. You see the church to the north. This is north of the site across 26th Street, which is a church. This is south of the site, which is a single-family dwelling. Another view south of the site. I believe this is one of the pump station facilities. East of the site, which is duplexes. Another view east of the site, which is showing some of the vacant land and single family. This is west of the site, showing some commercial, what used to be a commercial structure. This is further west of the site along Broad Street in 26, which is a convenience store. This is in the south side, South Broad District Plan, which is adopted in 2018. It has multiple land use recommendations on this property, from mixed use housing high intensity to mixed use housing medium intensity and to single family housing. So it's 3 different land use classifications on this property. Past that. So staff recommended to deny the applicant's request with C3 and go UGC. The proposed development with conditions is compatible with South Broad District Plan. The majority of South Broad is already zoned UGC. And by going UGC, you cut down the number of conditions that would be required on the property to 3. Staff is proposing 3 conditions as part of the UGC. Residential uses only. Maximum building height of 4 stories. Maximum of 3 curb cuts along Cowart Street and William Street, unless additional curb cuts are required during the permitting process. The applicant did send me on Friday some revisions to the conditions. They're okay with condition number 3 related to the number of curb cuts, but they would like to request to basically amend proposed condition 1 and 2 by staff. Where number 1, staff said residential uses only. They're requesting residential uses only, except the ground floor commercial and or office may be allowed fronting 26th and 27th Street. And condition number 2, staff recommended a building height of 4 stories. Their revision is maximum building height for multifamily shall be 5 stories. Maximum building height shall be 4 stories for all other buildings, and keeping condition number 3 the same. I did quickly do this morning, just showing on the site and what some of the heights were in terms of conditions that were placed on properties. To the north of this site, these sites here were rezoned UGC. Condition on that height was 3 on both requests. Even on this property we're talking about today, along 26, they had a condition of 3 stories. And then the C3 had a condition of 4 stories, just to give you reference. Then the plan recommendations, it also mentioned height requirements. The goldish looking color along 26, the plan recommended a maximum height of 3 stories. Same thing along William Street, the plan recommended 3 stories. And then the darker brown, the plan recommendation was 4 stories. So staff recommends to approve with 3 conditions. 1, residential uses only, building height of 4 stories, and a max of 3 curb cuts.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Hey, Brian, before we go into the questions, please note that this is City District 7, not 8. Trust me. Just so the applicant knows to speak with Councilwoman Dotley and not Councilwoman Knoll. Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Any other questions or comments before we hear from the applicant? Mr. Bird.
When we say 3 driveways on Cowart and Williams, is that 3 driveways total, or is it 3 on each?
I think it's combined. It's maximum 3.
Okay, I think we need to clarify that language somewhat just to make sure that's obvious. That's good. Thank you.
Mr. Jones. Is there opposition in regards to this zoning request? Okay. Mr. Jones.
Great. Alan Jones with Stone Creek Consulting over at Wilmouth Road in Dunlap. So yeah, we really have no issues with the UGC request. The reason we actually went with the C3, because I think about 60-70% of the property was already zoned C3. But with everything on the property, we've got C3, R3, and UGC. We're trying to consolidate this to make one cohesive development plan. So we're not having to piecemeal this thing together. A little bit of history on this block. There's pretty much been 2 developers that I've been kind of looking at have been buying property up in this block over the past 5, 6, 7 years. There's been 2 properties they've not been able to kind of get a hold of, and they now have those under contract. So there's two homes in this entire block. And the developers have that under contract. And then the 2 developers are coming together with a joint venture to really create I think it's a fantastic development opportunity for the South Side area. As far as the conditions go, real quick on the site plan. So what we're looking at is having 26th Street. The city just redid that street, I guess, 2-3 years ago, 1 year ago. It's a fantastic street. And I would hope that if the city's investing those kind of dollars into a corridor that ties all the way to the Howard School, we'd like to have some nice developments along this new street. The request for the 5 stories along 26th and 27th, where we're proposing to have the multifamily portions of the development, is right now we can make it work with 4 stories with surface parking. What we'd like to have is the option of having structured parking. So that way we can reduce the amount of surface parking. To make the economics work on that, we'd really like to have that opportunity to do stick built on top of a podium. So that way we can garage park essentially, the condos or apartments, whichever avenue we end up going, and then having the stick built above that, as opposed to just 4 stories with surface parking. Everything else in the middle of the site is townhomes and detached garages. Those little squares that kind of line up behind the condo building. The idea behind that is to have those are garages that residents can rent or purchase, depending on which for home ownership route we end up taking, and even potentially an ADU on top of that. So those would be 2 stories with a garage and an ADU on top of it. The big green space in the middle, that's essentially it's about the same size as Main Terrain Park. So we're looking at that as being our main stormwater facility, but also having an active or really an active kind of passive park in that space to give the residents, not only this development, but even the surrounding communities, to have some green space to come out and utilize. I've been in touch with Dotley, probably 2 or 3 different conversations with her over the past couple of months. I know she's excited about this development. When I was hanging the yellow signs last month, I had 2 or 3 residents stop and ask me what we're doing. I said, we're looking at townhomes and apartments. And they're like, that's great. So I think there's excitement for this community to bring some more housing into the area. With the 26th and 27th Street, being literally a block away from a gas station and a block away from Ace Hardware. I think to me, from a transition standpoint, it's a good urban transition from those commercial areas along Broad, which is all UGC anyway. And I have been in touch with the church, with Pastor McLean. We've been to have some dialogue, and I'll probably end up meeting with their church just to kind of present what we're going on, just so they're in the loop, so they don't feel like they're left out of the process. But I'd love to have any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for the applicant?
I've got a question.
Mr. Penn?
Just UGC without any restrictions, what's the maximum height for the building?
I don't think there is a maximum height listed in UGC ordinance. It's can you park it for?
We have 5. We have 5.
Is it 5? Okay,
we changed it from 4 to 5.
Okay, so in
5.
other words, you don't need that. I'm asking, if we do away with the 4-story limit, there's no sense in saying 5 stories because UGC limits to 5 anyway.
Correct.
Fair enough.
Okay.
And that was really more of being, we're not going to do townhomes more than 4 stories. So
I also want to clarify again, going back to the driveway thing.
Oh, yes.
Maybe I misunderstood. I misunderstood somebody. It looks like from the site plan, there are 3 driveways on Cowart and 3 on Williams. And so yes. I think that last condition, if we move forward with this, should read maximum of 3 curb cuts along Cowart and 3 curb cuts along Williams, just so there is no question as to how to interpret that, unless there's...
Yeah, staff was looking at 3 combined for the overall site, not 3 per Cowart or Williams. We're trying to let them choose. It's either 3 on Cowart or 3 on Williams.
So
stagger it. Yeah. But you're right. That probably needs to be tweaked.
So that's something, it looks like that's news.
Yeah, that I was interpreting that as 3 along Cowart and 3 along Williams. We could look at that as an option. But the problem is we're going to start carving up this whole site with driveways. And to get access to either Cowart or Williams. If you go back to the site plan, Brian, for us to, if we want to have this nice central green space without roads cutting through it or driveways, we're going to have to start dicing this site up and really chopping it up. Over an entire block, having 3 driveways versus I think right now there's 10 lots. Going from 10 driveways down to 3, I think that's appropriate. I think our original condition, because when we first submitted this as C3, staff asked us to submit conditions, and so we asked for 4 curb cuts just because we're still in the planning process, and they came back with 3 curb cuts. I had assumed it was 3 on Cowart and 3 on Williams, which I don't think is absurd given the block length that we have.
I was going to say the block length is very long in this area, and I don't think 3 on each side is inappropriate.
Yeah, I think I'm just now looking at what transportation stated in their notes. It would be, I think we were thinking from RPA staff, the combined 3. I think transportation is thinking 3 on Cowart and 3 on Williams. If you look at their notes of the staff report.
But thank you for pointing that out.
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion if there's not.
Please, Mr. Byrd.
I do have one more question.
Mr. Rao.
You've asked for the increase from staff recommendations to go from 4 to 5 for the multifamily in hopes of creating structured parking. What would the street conditions then be like on 26th and 27th? Would the way that this building meet the street be that it would be an open parking garage?
No, we would have either units or commercial on the ground floor, and I'd be happy to have condition that ground floor along to kind of go with the commercial. Having that potential for commercial, like having a coffee shop or something along 26th Street. Having I think when I did a 2600 Cowart Street apartment complex and rezone that, I think it was phrased as having active space on the ground floor of 26th and 27th Street. And I'd be more than happy to have that as a condition.
I think that's my primary concern is that if that podium's created, if there's not a mechanism to make sure that we have an activated street front there, it could make a whole block of something really undesirable.
How is that usually handled? I know in the form-based code, it's a 30-foot setback for parking along certain streets. Would that be appropriate, or would we condition the use on the ground floor? What's the precedent, I suppose?
I think that the intention is to have the active space because you could, with the UGC, right, you can set back and activate that. But I think the idea, my understanding is it's not, the use is intended to not be parking on that first floor, that it be some sort of activated space. I think active space along ground floor, along 26th and 27th, I think would get it, or activated space, or no parking, no parking deck or something.
Right. My thought is, and I don't know how this would. Yeah, I think.
Thank you.
A setback, a parking setback. I don't know how that would impact your surface parking as shown on the site plan, but no parking within 30 feet of the property line.
Cassie noted that you can only set it back if it's no parking. It has to be inactive. So parking would be the side of the rear. If the intention is it not be a parking deck, that be active space, I think leave it to be active space along ground floor. And if we want to borrow something from the form-based code to clarify that for council, we can.
Okay.
And if I can chime in on that, I think using the active space language makes sense. Whether it's a 20-foot, 15-foot, 30-foot, that really depends on the final use of that ground floor. If we've got an office space, 20 feet makes, we could have a 20-foot deep office building or office space and then parking behind it. If we're putting a coffee shop there, we're going to need 45 feet. So just that final pro forma along that ground floor is going to change as the market demands. But just having active space on the ground floor makes sense on 26, 27.
Okay, I'm prepared to make a motion. If you could pull up the applicant conditions again, just so I'm getting these right. And one more thing, I suppose, before I would like to discuss just striking condition 2 entirely. I don't really see the point in hanging up on an additional story if UGC is already 5 stories, just to simplify things, unless there's any opposition to that. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve with the following conditions. Residential uses only, except on the ground floor, commercial and/or office may be allowed fronting 26 and 27. Active space facing the street on the ground floor, and a maximum of 3 curb cuts along Cowart and 3 curb cuts along Williams. Done.
Second. We have a motion to approve with conditions the UGC. And it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commission.
Alan, get out of here. Item 10 on our agenda is case 2023-0015, and it's located at 5965, 79, and 93 Highway 153. And it's an application to lift conditions, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? You're the applicant.
Yeah. My name is Oscar Brock, and I represent Aventine Development of Allen, Texas. They're in the process of acquiring the shopping center known as the Fountains of North Chattanooga, up off 153 in Hickson. And we're okay with everything with one exception. We had previously asked for a bunch of conditions to be waived. And one of those conditions was to install a second traffic light at the northern entrance of the property near where the senior living center is being built. And the traffic department and the planning agency came back to us and said, hey, that's cool, but you need to do a traffic study. When we pulled up with the help of the planning agency, an older traffic study, it became apparent that there really is a need for that second traffic light. So we'd like to waive our previous request for the traffic light. We'll agree to go ahead and keep that condition in place, and that alleviates the need for the staff recommended condition of the traffic study. And I may be getting ahead of staff at this point.
No, I think it's fine for us to hear from you, because what would be normal is, in this case, you've got, or in the last week, you've got the staff recommended conditions.
Correct.
And what we need to know is if you as an applicant take issue with any of those conditions or request for us to make any modifications to what staff has recommended.
So can you guys see what I'm looking at
Yes.
on the screen here? What we're suggesting is take away the lifting of condition 4. We'll go ahead and develop, design, and build the traffic signal at the northern entrance. The southern one, of course, already exists. And in return, we'd like you to waive the condition that staff was recommending you add to do the traffic study, because it becomes moot at that point. All the other conditions we're comfortable with.
Mr. Schultz.
Sure. I can try to, on the screen, these are the 9 conditions that were originally applied to this case back in 2006. The ones in red are what the applicant wishes to lift, and the ones in black were what staff were, they did not ask to lift. And staff was agreeable to lifting those conditions. As part of the review of lifting number 4, Transportation Department said because the plan or traffic study was from 2006, it needed to be updated and was requiring an updated traffic study. So the applicant now wishes to keep condition number 4 and lift condition 1, 3, and 6. And I reached out to the Transportation Department on Friday after talking to the applicant. They're okay with that, but the applicant needs to be aware that because this is on State Highway 153, they're probably going to be requested to do new traffic numbers because that thing was in 2006.
Yeah, TDOT will certainly
Yes.
have an input on that as well.
And I don't see anybody from Transportation Department here to say differently. So the end of the day, the request is to lift condition number 1, which is a conceptual site plan. Staff is agreeable to lifting that condition. Number 2 would stay, no access to Grove Road. Let me go this through, go to the conditions actually. Yeah, go ahead and make a motion.
We have a motion, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Payne. Next case on our agenda is case 2023-0016. It's located at 2341 Jenkins Road, and it's an application to rezone from R1 to RTZ. It has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? All right. I saw the applicant. Mr. Schultz.
Get back to the case that went ahead too far. This is 2023-16. Request to rezone from R1 residential zone to RTZ for proposed townhomes. Acres of this site is 0.94. Number of units proposed by the applicant is 6. That equals a density of 6.38. Looking at the zoning map, this property again is zoned R1. Everything abutting this property to the north, south, and west is RTZ. To the south, to the east across Jenkins Road is R1. This large R2A section is in the county, but this property is in the city. So immediately abutting this property is RTZ. There's been no zoning history for this particular piece of property. However, the abutting properties, which are zoned RTZ, going back from 2006, we've had multiple zoning cases to rezone what was R1 to RTZ. So there's precedent in the area for RTZ. It's currently a vacant piece of property. To the north is single family. To the west of this site is townhomes. And to the south is single family. And to the east across Jenkins Road, this vacant piece of property. You may remember this is Holly Hills to the east, where a lot of it was destroyed by the tornado a couple years ago. Here's a view of the site. You can see the single family abutting this property, and to the west is townhomes. Another view of the site. Another view of the site. This is north of the site. This is south of the site. And this is east of the site looking into Holly Hills. Another view east of the site. This is west of the site, which is RTZ that has townhomes already. This is a view looking along Jenkins Road, the site's just on the left-hand side. This property is in the Area 11 East Brainerd Plan, which is adopted in 2022. It recommends suburban residential, primary uses being single-family detached residential. However, looking at the zoning map, you have RTZ and townhomes in the area. It makes more sense to have RTZ at this location. So the request is compatible with surrounding land uses and development form and existing RTZ zoning in the area, which would be an extension of that zone. Staff did recommend conditions in terms of building massing and form to ensure compatibility with the Area 11 East Brainerd Plan. So staff recommended approve with 2 conditions: 1 curb cut along Jenkins Road and a maximum of 4 units per massed building. If you're looking at the site plan, he's showing 1 large continuous mass. So staff is saying break that up into 1 building with 4 units and then the remainder being 2 units. So staff recommends approve with 2 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. It's all yours.
Joseph Ingram, Ingram Gore and Associates. So this is an existing piece of property where the existing home got taken in the storms 3 years ago. So it was never rezoned because it was always that single family residence, but like I said, surrounded by RTZ. We're looking at just taking a single access from Jenkins Road. So 1 driveway for 1 driveway. And we build compatible to the townhouse we're abutting. There's a sewer, there's access to sewer through the existing subdivision through an easement. We're probably, I guess we're okay. I'd probably do 3 and 3 as opposed to 4 and 2 on the massing. And then, like I said, it leaves you a lot of opportunity for open space. The units would be close enough to Jenkins Road that they actually have their fire service from Jenkins. You just had be a private access drive. Stormwater in the back. So I guess I'll answer questions from the neighbors. I mean, I'm not asking for greater density. I'm not asking for spot zoning. It's just kind of a request to fill the neighborhood out.
If we could, real quick, in regards to the staff conditions or the recommended conditions, they've recommended approval. They got 1 curb cut along Jenkins Road. You're of course fine with that. And then the maximum of 4 units per massed building you would be amenable to.
Yeah, we just do 3 and 3. We'd probably rather do 4 and 2. We do 3 and 3.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from the opposition and then have an opportunity to respond.
Thank you very much. My name is Danny Brown. I live at 7800 Legacy Park Court here in East Brainerd. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Legacy Park Homeowners Association. We'd like to submit the following statement regarding proposed rezoning of the property at 2341 Jenkins Road, adjacent from our neighborhood. Concerns as follow. The impact of this development on already hazardous traffic on insufficient infrastructure on Jenkins Road. And that's only going to get worse as Grace Academy is completed. We all know how crowded Jenkins Road is. The impact of the surrounding neighborhood and property values by putting 6 homes on such a tiny piece of property. The impact of drainage and sewage issues on the existing homes. We've had nothing but problems out of the drainage and the sewage that we already have. We don't need any more in there. The impact of overflow parking from the proposed development. The proposed 2 spaces per unit will push overflow parking onto our streets. The impact of privacy on the existing homes. All of our homes face a cul-de-sac. They face one way in. They don't face Jenkins Road. We're going to be looking right at the back of all of these townhomes from our homes. The detention pond will be a mosquito hazard and its planned location is directly across the street from our community pool. The detention pond shows, according to his drawing, that the center of it is 10 feet from the property line directly behind it. If you look, that's going to be about 4 feet from the edges to that property line. I'd like to look out your front door 12 feet away and see a detention pond. You got kids in the neighborhood. Come on. Like I say, I would respectfully ask you to consider these concerns we have and to realistically not change this from R1 to RTC. Thank you.
Good morning. Good afternoon now. Philip Mathis, 7804 Legacy Park. Danny pretty much covered everything. It's just, right now, it's just traffic is our biggest issue out there. And if that's just a single entrance going into that one piece of property, I'm just thinking of Amazon, Postal, FedEx. They're stopping now on Jenkins just to deliver mail and products, you know. And if you're going down Jenkins between 2 and 7 o'clock, it's backed up. If you let coming down Shalford and you trying to make a left-hand turn on Jenkins, you might as well stop. You're going to be stopping up there past the Y. Then if you're coming back down Stanford Gap from exit 7, that's a good half a mile before you even get to the Stanford Gap and Jenkins. I mean, but anyway, just traffic. I have no problem with what Mr. Danny Brown said, but anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hill.
Gentlemen, I have a question. So, looking at these maps, your neighborhoods are RTZ. It's the same zoning as what Legacy Park, Laurelton, and the court are. And the density that they're asking for is actually lower than the Legacy Park court density. And we're looking at 6 units with a single driveway compared to use Legacy Park. What I can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, there's probably
24,
more than 20 on a single entrance. So help me understand how these 6 units are going to cause that negative of an impact when it's the same as where you are, only fewer units.
Have you seen the proposed drawing?
Mm-hmm.
This one? Okay. If you'll look, when you come off of Jenkins Road, there's going to be one road in for his. There's one road for ours also.
Uh-huh.
But look where his set. In other words, all the houses here, we come out of our neighborhood, we're going to be looking at the back of their houses instead of turning them the other way, looking at our entrance.
So they would be then looking at the back of your homes?
No, that's the back of their houses. They'll be looking out at Jenkins Road across the field.
Yes.
That's the front of their homes. The back of their homes are facing ours, facing the sides of ours.
The sides of yours?
Yes.
Mm.
Our question is, why can't he turn the houses the other way and bring the road in and just turn them east and west?
Well, that's a conversation that's separate from the zoning, though.
And the drainage pond, I mean, that is a big issue. I mean, why is it?
Well, I just want to jump in. We're not approving the orientation of the houses. We're not approving where the drainage pond goes. So we're not approving this site plan. We're not even approving where his entrance is. So all of that is subject to change between now and it actually getting built. All we're approving here today would be the zoning request, which is the same, and the density, and that is also the same. So those sorts of things, those are addressed when the project is being permitted.
Yes, sir. Okay. I have a question for you also, though. Our entrance, we are where we sit at our entrance. There's a blind hill. It's at the bottom. Where we sit, we can look. You can't see the bottom of the hill, but you can see the hill before you get there. We can see the cars coming up the hill. We know if a white truck is the last one coming, once that truck gets to us, we can go. Where their entrance is, and there's no way to stop it, where this is right here, if on this whole piece of property, they're going to be blind. They cannot see the hill before, the bottom of the hill. They cannot see anything. You will have 100 feet from the top of that hill till you get to their entrance. Now, somebody going 35 miles an hour, that gives you about 2 seconds to make up your mind. You pull out your hit. That's just the way it is. You got one house that sits there on R1. You got a lot less of a chance. I'm not saying there's not a chance, because there is. But you got a lot less of a chance of one person getting hit than you do 12 cars or how many ever they're going to have right here. That's a very blind hill. And even on our neighborhood now, if you come up Jenkins Road and you're coming from Shalford Road to Stanford Gap, anytime between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock at night, we can't turn left. We've got to turn right and go down around the roundabout and then sit in traffic to go. You're just adding more and more and more people to an already busy area. That's my concern.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Bird and then Mr. Payne.
It appears from the GIS map that there's this little teardrop shaped property owned by the Legacy Park Association. And this is separate from the rezoning question. But it seems to me that once this rezoning is approved or denied or whatever happens, that there's room for you and the applicant to work together to maybe, it's almost up to y'all as a neighborhood association to say, hey, we want these houses to face Legacy Park Court and maybe actually be part of Legacy Park Court. I don't know how that works legally or development wise, but that seems to be the suggestion. Again, separate from what we're discussing here today, as the chairman already mentioned, which is the rezoning.
Mr. Payne.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we have this discussion quite often, and what our job, at least my understanding of it, is the appropriateness of the zone. But to your point, if we approve this before it gets built, they'll have to go to CDOT, and if it's true that they can't see, they won't allow them to be built. I mean, they won't let you build there's so much visibility you have to have. The same's true with the stormwater. They're going to look at the stormwater and determine where the stormwater can be, can't be. So this is conceptual at best to give us an idea of what the plan is. But our question and what we vote on is whether or not this is an appropriate zone as he's requesting it. And we all feel your pain as far as traffic everywhere you go. We're dealing with that all over Chattanooga. So that's something we need to be concerned as a larger group.
I have one more concern.
No,
Could we?
No, sorry. Time's up for opposition. We need to hear from the applicant. He needs to give the opportunity. He needs to respond to what we've heard.
Jenkins Road is rough. I mean, I timed the traffic when I was out there because I put the sign out. So I looked at the traffic and I exited from there. There actually would be no ingress between us and their drive. I don't know how my people at my development would be parking on their roadway. That'd be a stretch. They'd have to walk across that. And what you said, I'd love to deal with that orphan piece they have out front, but I have lost every single time I've dealt with an HOA to try to buy a piece of property or get access. And so I didn't try that. I'd love to work with them on that. I'd love to work with join their HOA and put money in their pool and all that. But I can't say I've ever had success, but we are asking for a lower zone. With the R1, you could put 4 lots out there with driveways on Jenkins I just do a plat. I mean, and we all know with the new zoning, it's probably going to be 7 lots, when the city changes. Chris thought that. but I just, as I said, this is just fitting in with the neighborhood. I think stormwater, we're going to be a super shallow pond. It wouldn't be wet, so we control that kind of thing. I said they looked at the back of the house before, and there were some outbuildings that went with this existing residence that were up there on the property line. I said I don't feel like we're really trying to do anything bad, and if we have to move the driveway one way or the other, we will. Or if we can't get it to work, we can't get it to work. I mean, but like I said, we're just asking to match the zoning and try to move ahead with some housing.
Thank you,
Chairman. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Mr. Lowe.
I move to approve with staff conditions.
We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is item 12, case 2023-0017. It's located at 1514 Shelby Circle, 6340 Middle Valley Road, and 2 unaddressed parcels in the 6300 block of Middle Valley Road. It's an application to rezone from R1, R4, and RT1 with conditions to RT1 townhouse with conditions, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Who's the applicant? Are you familiar with the conditions that staff is recommending? Thank you. We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda, case 2023-0018, is located at 1605 Dodds Avenue, and it's an application to rezone from R2 to UGC, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, we did receive an email in opposition to this request.
Was it from me?
From who? You? No, they were opposed to, they feel that it should remain single family.
Okay. Are y'all the applicants? Yeah. Okay. And are you familiar with the conditions that staff has recommended? Yes. Do you have any questions or concerns with those conditions? Yeah.
Like a home occupation.
That is what it would mean.
It would be codes enforcement interpretation. I think since the primary use would be residential and the live work, if you will, the home occupation would be secondary use. I think that'd be acceptable. It couldn't be just a complete office or
it couldn't
commercial.
Be a total office, but it's our opinion that it could be used as like a home occupation. What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve the staff recommendation, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Welcome to the neighborhood. Glad you're there. Item 14 is a mandatory referral. It's 2023-0004. It's located at 808 Palmetto Street. It has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All I heard was one aye. Okay. So I'm just saying I'm expecting a lot of opposition. All right. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. We've got a couple of amendments. I am not going to read them, but referencing them by agenda only. Under section 5, amendments and resolutions, we have the first. Is there any opposition? Can I ask a question? You can. Come on up.
I had a question of clarity on this one. If a building is built originally as a duplex and then it is converted to a single family, but it still retains all the existing infrastructure of a duplex, can it now be returned into a duplex on this link?
No, the way it's written must be an existing duplex. Yes, you've now taken a duplex, converted to a single family. That'd be the primary use, would be a single family. That
It answers the question. I don't know if it helps.
Any other discussion on the first amendment there? Well, I think that would be a super slippery slope, because what's happened is, some R2 properties that were built as duplex, back in the day, were not able to get turned back into duplex. Now they've been built as single, renovated, and now there's 1 meter on them. And then for LDO to somehow sort out, what was what and when, I think that could just be really, really complicated. I think this is a huge win for the city and those vacant properties. Does it address every practical reality out there? I don't think it does.
No,
but
I think you're right. That is a slippery slope we're starting to go down of allowing what used to be duplexes that are being converted to R1. I mean, a single family now to go back into duplex. It has a single purpose to put those duplexes that have been sitting there vacant for a long time back into use. That was the intention behind it. I hope the new zones may have some more flexibility, and that's what we're looking for. This is maybe a stopgap until we get there.
I'd entertain a motion. We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 on our agenda under Section 5. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And item 3 under Section 5 on our agenda. Any discussion? I'd entertain a motion. We have a motion, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We do have time for staff updates. I feel like we covered those during our lunch.
You did. We covered the Chattanooga subreg. Just remind everybody, we're having a special call public planning commission hearing on January 26th from 1 to 3 in this chambers to discuss subdivision standards. I think we have Dara here to talk about the Mountain Creek Road corridor study, if you'd like to hear on that. Yes, we'll have Eric send those out.
Yes.
Which one was that again? So you did not make that motion? They were all approved last month. I have to go back and check the audio, but they were all approved last month.
He just doesn't want to be the second.
Oh, he didn't make the second. I thought he said about deferred.
Thank you. While we're covering things that need to go on the record, I so appreciate the fact that y'all print these for us. Is there any way to print them in such a way that each case has, because when you print them front and back, it makes it really hard to manage these.
Yours is not like mine, front to back?
It is front and back, but
I know the
but
case
we don't
numbers.
have a notebook. So, all of a sudden the next case is in the garbage because it's on the back. So I don't know if it's possible.
No, it's possible. I was on vacation during that week, and I forgot to go in and put the blank pages before
Don't go
Sandra printed them.
Mhm.
No more vacation.
No more vacation, because that makes it really hard.
No, I'm with you. I caught that. I thought I'd catch her before she printed it, because she printed it before I could
Gotcha.
catch her.
Thank you.
And that's a good question, too. The packets are large. We're going digital. We're going to be all digital.
No, trust me. Trust me. Mr. Payne is not digital.
No, we're good. We're good.
All right.
Yes,
we
Billy,
do
no.
have an opportunity for the Mountain Creek Road corridor study update. Do you want to give us one now?
I think Dara's here to do.
Okay.
And we touched on it briefly during lunch, so said you had about 5 minutes. sit there for you.
Okay, I can give
Just
you
tell me when to switch.
Sure. I'm Dara Epson, of course, senior planner with CP&D. I'll just start right away with our community engagement process. We had 2 meetings as well as a survey that we conducted at the beginning or with our first meeting in June 2022. We had a total of 87 survey responses that we received from community members. One of the things we want to note, though, that survey and the community engagement represented a limited population. There were a significant chunk that were missing, such as the demographic of renters. We all had our second final meeting in September 2022, and the issues we covered in the first meeting were just broadly the issues we heard from the community and that we knew of: traffic, high density development, floodplain protection, stormwater mitigation, steep slopes, and their stability and protection, in parks, open space, and natural resources. And then we collect additional comment cards that then community that then served as our analysis. So just to briefly summarize the analysis and review, we did a demographic assessment and looked at the proportion of the renters community to the home ownership. That was around, I think it was around 37% in the area are in fact renters. That rate is sort of approximate to the city of Chattanooga as a whole. So when you have a small area compared to the large area, it is something that is noteworthy. We looked at speeding. We had 2 speeding studies done, one during school, one out in June and in September. The results of that essentially found that the averages actually tend to be average what they should be, right around below the speed limit. And we noted some intersections of concern that might be for future follow-up, namely Mountain Creek Road and Morrison Springs, and the issues of the roundabouts. We also looked at flood mitigation and had conversation with our public works department on that, as well as the slopes policies. And we looked at the 2003 Greenway that was in fact adopted. Of course, it has been constructed, but that being something that can be brought forward in future planning process during the Area 2 plan. And we looked into the conditions that were associated with the quarry property and its early development. So our conclusions for the transportation: any future development we would definitely want to consider having turn lane requirements for any big development that would come in. And then we'd also want to consider the need for traffic signals as well with any large developments that might come into the area. And in particular, roads that intersect Mountain Creek Road, we want to look at trimming vegetation to ensure that you have the best sight lines to make it easier for people to turn on and off Mountain Creek Road. Housing and development was one of the biggest hot button issues. Essentially, what we have found that the current density throughout the corridor, as it is at this time, is appropriate, and that's what we want to see maintained moving forward, whether any cases came up. Any additional commercial zoning, we of course want to see clustered at the intersection of Signal Mountain Road and Mountain Creek Road, as that's already where it tends to be. As well as addressing parking requirements and seeing where we could reduce the parking requirements with any future development, such that we're not having more traffic added or we don't have more surface parking than we actually need. And then going back to the commercial zoning, we'd want to sort of mitigate traffic where it can by having any commercial development that's either redeveloped or developed in the area to be walkable and mixed use we can. Of course, we can't necessarily prevent new development coming in, people redeveloping their properties. We would want to again maintain the overall density as is and not see it become higher density or across the corridor. For natural resource parks and open space, of course, you see the picture there from the mudslide several years ago. One of the things we were looking into is reviewing the floodplain and steep slope protections. Of course, that will come back up during the Area 2 planning process, and investigating any potential for low impact development, again, in any new development that comes to the corridor to mitigate the floodplain right there. And clustering in the future development, where you have some townhomes or small lot houses that again maintain the overall zoning of the area, so you're not adding more flooding potential than already is what in the corridor. And looking at parks and greenways, of course, the Parks Department just concluded their parks planning process, and so seeing whether any parks could be added or the greenway could be developed in the future. That's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We do have a time on our agenda for public comment on non-agenda items. You're still sitting here, so I'm wondering if you're wanting to say something. Thank you. I need approval. It's December 12th, 2022. We have a motion to approve and it has been properly seconded. Thank you, Mr. Payne. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Mr. Payne? Thank you.